I was able to buy a lot of land at dirt cheap prices. And when you buy anything for a small fraction of its actual market value, it's not hard to turn around and sell that thing and make money on it.
All right. I am Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow, the world's leading and most comprehensive coaching and consulting firm for long-term residential property management entrepreneurs. And my guest today I'm hanging out with is Seth Williams. Welcome, Seth.
Hey, Jason. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and of REtipster. And so, Seth, let's get into a little bit of your background. You've done a lot of different things connected to real estate.
My journey kind of starts back in about 2005, 2006 when I was still in college. And like most people, I was trying to find houses I could buy that I could flip or rent, that kind of thing, just get into the real estate game. But I didn't really know anything about how to do it. I had no competitive advantage. I was looking on the MLS. That was the only place I knew I could look for to find deals. And there weren't any deals. It was horrible. I spent hundreds of hours and found nothing that made any financial sense. And I was just like, man, how do people do this? Like, how do people find good real estate deals if I can't find them? I was looking everywhere and there was nothing out there. And it was around, after struggling with this for a couple of years, I discovered two things that kind of worked hand in hand. The first was the land business. So buying vacant land. And like most people, when I first heard that, I was like, what? Vacant land? Like, why would I do that? That makes no sense. It's just dirt. Like, where's the cash flow? Where's the income? And the other thing that I discovered, though, was how to find deals off market through something called the Delinquent tax list. And this is basically a list of property owners that every county has of properties that are currently back due on their property taxes. This is not the same thing as the tax sale list. So it's not the list of properties that's going to go up for auction soon. It's people who still own their property, but they're back due on taxes. If they don't pay them off soon, they're going to get their property taken from them. And these two things together, land and the delinquent tax list, I was able to find and contact people who had land with delinquent taxes on it. And because there were delinquent taxes, they're in a situation where it's like, hey, you got to pay out these taxes in like weeks or you're going to lose everything. Maybe they just inherited it. Maybe they bought it 20 years ago, but for whatever reason, they didn't care about the thing. And I'm sitting there saying, hey, I'll pay you a few $100s, maybe a few $1,000s, and I'll pay off your taxes and I'll make this problem go away. And because a lot of these people didn't want their property anyway, and I was kind of taking care of a nuisance in their life, I was able to buy a lot of land at dirt cheap prices. And I could also buy it free and clear. So there's no mortgages or anything on it. And when you buy anything for a small fraction of its actual market value, it's not hard to turn around and sell that thing and make money on it. So that was the business I got into, and it's been awesome. It's changed a lot over the years, but it's just been a really great way to, without needing a whole lot of cash, finding properties, getting them for a very cheap price, and then making money without having to change anything on the property.
Yeah, got it. Is that still the go-to strategy?
So it's definitely still effective, but the drawback of the delinquent tax list is that they're kind of a pain to get. And then even when you do get them, they're kind of a mess to sort through. So if you're willing to go through the nuisance of getting the list and sorting through it, there's a ton of value on that. But there's another way that's actually easier through a data service that I use called the Land Portal. And it's basically just a much more streamlined, seamless, organized way to get lists of landowners. So both ways work. They both have pros and cons. The delinquent tax list is more of an annoying way to do it, but it's probably the more effective way. The Land Portal is a lot easier, but you get a little bit less motivation on that list because people don't have this delinquent tax problem.
Less of a mess to clean up. Probably a little quicker. So cool. Well, you're going to unpack today the secrets of building wealth through land investing. This is like your number one specialty. And we'll chat a little bit about self-storage. And I'm sure there's some property managers that are listening that haven't done that yet. And most of the property managers listening, if you own a property management business, your number one goal should not be to just manage other people's properties. It should probably be to build up your own portfolio of stuff and make some money. That's probably a better play, and leveraging your company to attract deals and to attract real estate. So let's get into this. Where do we start?
Yeah, well, what I just described is kind of the high level view of how you find properties in the first place. And I mean, in terms of like people out there who are property managers who might invest in houses and that kind of thing, the delinquent tax list or the land portal can work for those kinds of properties too. The main difference is that you're going to find usually less competition when dealing with vacant land because most people aren't thinking about land. They're thinking about houses. Right. They think that's the way they have to do it. And that's fine if you want that. But the problem with houses, as you probably know, in property management, there's a lot more wrinkles. There's a lot more people problems. There's things falling apart that are broken and get stolen and destroyed. With land, there's none of that. It's a much simpler animal to deal with. But if your strategy is to find rentals or something like that, you could certainly scope out rental properties using the same method. You would just be targeting different types of property owners than I do.
Got it. So how does this connect to self-storage?
Well, self-storage is a totally different business than buying and selling vacant land.
Yeah.
But there is some crossover. So back in 2021, I found a piece of land that was zoned residential. It was 6.7 acres, and I bought it, and I rezoned it to commercial. And then I got approval to build a self-storage facility because I had always wanted to get into this business. A land business is great for generating big influxes of cash. It's like a cash generating machine. But self-storage is, it's a little bit different. It's, at least the way that I do it, it's more of a cash flow play. So, you know, all in all, it took me a couple $1 million to buy the land and build this facility. It took me basically a year to design it and build it. And it's, comparatively speaking, more of a trickle of cash flow, but it's permanent cash flow. There's also a lot of depreciation write-offs. It's also very scalable. So it's easy to increase every single person's rent by $5, and the value effectively goes way up because of that. But like nobody moves out because it's just $5. And most people don't care about a $5 increase per month. So it's a very different business. And for me, my long-term goal is to do more of that because the benefit of self-storage is that unlike land, it's not like a thing that you have to keep peddling for it to keep working. Land is a very active, you got to keep peddling or the cash flow is going to stop. Whereas self-storage is, well, you can buy one facility and the management is not terribly difficult for that, at least compared to like a rental property. And the cash flow will come in for as long as you own the thing. So that was why I made that shift.
How can maybe property managers potentially get into that?
Yeah, well, it's when I first got into it, what I tried to do is buy an existing facility from somebody within like a, hour driving radius of where I lived. And I think that's probably the best first move is to do that if you can, because you don't have to deal with all of the work of construction and there's cash flow on day one. So like right when you buy the thing, money's already coming in. Whereas when you build a new one, it takes months for the thing to fill up. So that was what I tried to do at first. But problem was in my market, I couldn't find anybody who wanted to sell their property at anywhere near a reasonable price. People wanted like twice as much as what their facilities were worth. And people were paying it. Like it was just crazy. You couldn't find good deals. So that was why I decided to do that. And it's nice in that you get to design it and lay it out the way you want, but it's also a much longer runway required to put the cash in and then wait for it to fill up and start cash flowing.
God, yeah. Is there a market to building these things out and then just selling them even though they're empty?
Yeah, that's what some people do. Selling them empty, I mean, that's not the ideal play. The real value of these things comes from paying tenants, that kind of thing. I think what most people would do is build them or maybe even buy an existing one that's half empty and then fill it up. Like do whatever you have to do to get tenants in there, whether it's changing the pricing or advertising more. And then once it's at least reasonably full, then you could cash out and do whatever you want. Buy another one or do something else.
Okay. Got it. Cool. So vacant land, self-storage, and then you're also like, you do a lot of content creation stuff in the real estate space. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I started a website called REtipster back in 2012. And it was really kind of a place to store a lot of the lessons and knowledge that I had gained from my experience in land investing and in owning rental properties and everything I had done to that point. And I didn't really know what the plan was. I just knew, hey, it's kind of fun for me to take my ideas and thoughts and things I've learned and distill them down into like bite-sized chunks and help other people figure out how to do the business from where they're at. And it turned out to be a lot of fun. And it didn't make money for like probably the first year that I was running it. But eventually I found ways to monetize it, started a podcast, a YouTube channel. And a lot of what we talk about is land, but we also talk about self-storage and occasionally rental properties, other things that are ancillary related to real estate investing.
Well, cool. Let me do a quick word from our sponsor, and then we can get into a little bit more. So our sponsor for this episode is Vendaroo. Many of you listening tell me that maintenance is probably the least enjoyable part of being a property manager and definitely the most time consuming. But what if you could cut that workload by up to 85%? That's exactly what Vendaroo has achieved. They've leveraged cutting edge AI technology to handle nearly all of your maintenance tasks, from initiating work orders and troubleshooting to coordinating with vendors and reporting. This AI doesn't just automate, it becomes your ideal employee, learning your preferences and executing tasks flawlessly, never needing a day off and never quitting. This frees you up to focus on the critical tasks that really move the needle for your business, whether that's refining operations, expanding your portfolio, or even just taking a well-deserved break. Over half the room at last year's DoorGrow Live event conference signed up with Vendaroo right there. And then a year later, they're not just satisfied, they're raving about how Vendaroo has transformed their business. Don't let maintenance drag you down. Step up your property management game with Vendaroo. Visit vendaroo.ai/DoorGrow today and make this the last maintenance hire you'll ever need. We've been talking a little bit about vacant land, a little bit about self-storage, talking a little bit about REtipster. What do you think would be of the most benefit to property management business owners that are exploring some of this stuff?
Well, maybe we could have a little conversation, you and me. So I've got a few questions I always go to when I'm talking to other real estate investors that are always, this kind of brings out some interesting perspectives. How long have you been in real estate, Jason?
Well, so I've been involved with coaching and consulting property management companies. So I'm more of a business coach since 2008.
What's one thing that you see new property managers focusing on that you think is actually a distraction from long-term success?
Ooh, the most common thing that I see that's a big distraction from long-term success is digital marketing. So a lot of property managers think in order to get more doors or get business, they need to do SEO. They need to do Google ads like pay-per-click, content marketing, social media marketing. The problem is the dirty secret marketers don't want to tell property managers because they like making money off of them is that there's very little search volume of people looking on the internet for property management. So they can go on Google Trends right now, put in property management, backdate it to 2004 when Google started tracking data and metrics to the present. And what you'll see is there's very little search volume. And if you compare it to any other term, like compared to AI is a good one lately, it has the same search volume of AI a decade ago. Whereas AI has this meteoric rise. And compared to AI, property management is just a little line at the bottom.
Sure.
It doesn't even register. And so there's plenty of business out there of people that don't want to manage their own property. There's no shortage in the US. There's no scarcity, but they're not looking for a property manager actively because they're either not aware that property managers are a viable option or exist, or they are aware, but most property managers suck. So they've written it off.
Yeah.
And they're not
So
really
how do you find those people then, if you don't know where they're looking? Or maybe you do know where they're looking.
We get them to do crazy things like pick up the phone and call non-owner occupied property owners, or like connect with real estate agents and create relationships to help the real estate agents get more deals from investors, stuff like that.
I'll tell you, there's a ton of power in somebody who's willing to pick up the phone. I mean, so many people don't even want to think about that. But if you can do that, man, you're already way ahead of the crowd.
Yeah. I mean, it's the one thing that we can teach clients, that they can create business on demand at any time, not have to hope and pray that a marketer is able to give them something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's another question. What's something that you hear novice property managers or critics of property managers complain about that makes you roll your eyes?
Well, the first that comes to mind is a lot of novice property managers complain about the potential clients being cheap, yet they're cheap. And so that's kind of the blind spot that I think there's a lot of property managers that have. I had a client once and he was complaining that, about, I'm tired of getting all these people wanting discounts or asking for us to lower our pricing, all these people that are so cheap about related to property management. And then I saw this same person post in a Facebook group for property managers saying, hey, does anybody have a discount for this property management software or this a maintenance software that exists, because I don't want to pay full price. And so the irony wasn't lost on me. Usually the blind spot that we have is we, kind of project that and create that in others. And so if you're cheap and you have a cheap mindset, then you're going to attract cheap clients. It's far more likely.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you're going to be a lot more sensitive to it. It's going to impact you differently. And people will pick up on that and they'll feel more anxious and be more price sensitive because you are.
For those property managers who are willing to pick up the phone and call around and find their customers, what do they do to avoid those cheap clients? Is there some red flag they can look out for to say, oh, you're not a good fit. We're going to go look here instead. Like, how do you find people that are willing to pay what they have to pay?
I just had Dustin Heiner on as an interview. And I know him from some masterminds that we're in together. And Dustin's a really cool guy. Dustin we did this great episode where he's like our client's ideal client, really. Because he's like, the first thing I do is I try to find a property manager before I even get a rental property. And I want to ask them where I should get a rental property and ask them for their advice. And I want a good property manager I can trust before I go find a property. But it's like, usually everyone does it backwards. They go get a realtor, they get a property, then they go and try and see if there's a good property manager. And he wants to be hands off. He doesn't want to call his property manager. He doesn't want to be involved in it. He wants them to just take care of stuff. That's the ideal. So I think the challenge is when property managers are looking on the internet for clients, they're like getting them through SEO or pay-per-click. These are the worst investor clients. They view property management as a commodity. They think all property managers are the same, and they're not, right? Not all property managers are the same, and most property managers are not very good. So to find the exceptional ones, usually you're going to find the better clients for a property management business by doing stuff that is more towards the strategies that we would rely on, which are warmer leads, warmer connections, so that you're not getting the crappy scraps that fall off the word of mouth table that are now searching on the internet looking for the cheapest manager. And if you build your portfolio off of digital marketing and the cheapest and most price sensitive owners, then you're going to have the highest operational costs, more than my clients at least, and it's going to be expensive to run your business.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've had my share of property managers that were terrible. I had one that was pretty decent. And in my case, I thought what made them stand out was just really good communication.
According to studies and surveys, the number one reason that people leave a property management company is communication. And so I think a lot of property managers mistakenly think they need to over communicate. But I think what a lot of property managers do is they give their tenants and their owners a blank check to steal all of their profits in some instances, because that's the number one source of financial leaks that I've seen in companies is interruptions. And so they just, every phone call from every tenant, every owner, constant interruptions means they need way more team, way more staff. This is the business. What I've found is really effective property management companies aren't communicating all the time. Good communication is what the clients want if they don't trust the property manager. If they trust the property manager, they want zero communication. So that's very different. So the best property managers, what I think is they set really good boundaries. My wife, Sarah, she managed 260 units part-time in 20 hours a week, basically by herself. She had one part-time person, boots on the ground, C-class properties, average rent below $1,000, difficult tenants. And she had plenty of time and she had 60 to 90% profit margin in her business. One of the most ridiculous case studies I've ever seen. She was really successful, very profitable. But she basically had a conversation with her owners at the beginning, said, hey, it's been great getting to know you, getting to know your property from here on out. You're not going to be hearing from me much. If I call you, my name shows up on your phone, I'm asking for money because there's a problem. So you're probably not going to want to hear from me. And she would say it as a joke, but she was setting boundaries and they would laugh. But that was how they trusted her. They trusted her because she set really strong boundaries.
Yeah.
And so that reduced their anxiety and it lessened the amount of times they had to call. They trusted her to manage and she was good at managing. So one, you got to be good at managing. You're the professional, which means you're not relying on them to tell you what to do. They should not be micromanaging the manager. Setting boundaries is required in order to have a really healthy business that does perform well.
If you could wave a magic wand and fix anything about the real estate industry right now, what would that be?
Ooh, fixing the real estate. Seth's interviewing me now. Yeah, you are. You are good at this. Well, why don't you go first? This is a great question.
Man, I mean, mine would be mostly related to the niches that I'm in. So like land and self-storage. And on the self-storage front, a lot of the software out there is terrible. Like it is just garbage software. It looks like it was designed 20 years ago and it's like antiquated, but it's expensive. And the problem is once you start using it, they kind of hold you hostage. If I could wave a wand, I would probably make it super easy to jump ship and switch softwares without them holding all of my customers' information hostage.
My magic wand, in line with what you said, I would selfishly do something towards the property management industry, is I would change the licensing requirements throughout the US, because the licensing requirements in each state to be a property manager have nothing to do usually with property management. Usually you have to have a real estate broker's license in order to manage rental properties, and that doesn't qualify them to manage rental properties at all. But it does create a big hurdle for them to be able to do it. And so it keeps probably some good actors out and probably makes people feel overconfident to do something that they probably aren't prepared to do. And very few states have a separate property management license. The number one source of complaints at most board of realtors is related to leasing, not real estate. And so, so there are some things in which, but there should be separate licensing, separate rules specific to property management, and that maybe raise the bar for property management so that they come in, understanding some things legally that are related to that. Because there's a lot of real estate agents that are doing some stuff that's probably not legal when it comes to leases or having conversations or probably breaking laws, and so that can be dangerous. Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast and some of the stuff that you're up to lately and how people can get a hold of you.
Sure. Yeah. The REtipster podcast. It's a really creative name. Just REtipster podcast.
Yeah.
I've been running it since 2018 and every week just talk to people that I find really fascinating. Sometimes they're in land, sometimes self-storage, sometimes neither. They just have a really cool thing going on. And I like to grill them and ask them questions and really get to the bottom of how they're doing what they're doing. So not surfacey questions, but really getting into it. It's a ton of fun. So yeah, feel free to check it out or anything at retipster.com. That's kind of the home base where you can find all the stuff I have out there. So.
Perfect. Very cool. Well, Seth, this has been fun. Appreciate you asking me some questions.
Yeah,
it's always a surprise. And it's great having you here on the DoorGrow show. If those of you listening, if you've been stuck or stagnant in your property management business, you want to take it to the next level, reach out to us at doorgrow.com. Also join our free Facebook community just for property management business owners at doorgrowclub.com. And if you found this even a little bit helpful, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. And until next time, remember the slowest path to growth is to do it alone. So let's grow together. Bye, everyone.